Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Sketch Party Day 2. Thank you for joining us again. Gus is very excited in the background. Since this is the second day, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for joining, and hopefully we'll be doing more sketch parties in the future. But for now, I have you here. For the next hour, we're going to be sketching in Adobe Fresco. So yesterday we started with one sketch. Well, actually we started with 4 sketches and 4 color palettes, and you all decided which ones I should work on. So we're going to finish that up. But first, let me remind you all of the schedule for the day, or yesterday and today. We started the day with some hand lettering basics from Shauna. We had 3 daily creative challenges today. So we had the Photoshop with Val at 9 o'clock. We had Illustrator at 11:30, and then we just had Howard's at 2, from 2 to 2:30. So there's a lot of learning to be done these days. Make sure you come back tomorrow for, I believe it's day 2 of those. But before I get too far into this, let me introduce myself. I'm Kathleen. I'll be your host. I'm a designer at Adobe. I host daily creative challenges sometimes, but at my heart and at my core, I'm an illustrator, which is why you can find me at Kathleen Illustrated on the internet at different places. So let me pop open my iPad so you can see, and while we are taking a peek at where we landed yesterday with our sketch, I want to say hello to the chat. If you're joining, give me a shout out. We've got Sam Peterson in the chat. What's up? Always nice to see a fellow digital painter in here. Raphael, hello. Michelle, Jack, how you doing? Lots of familiar faces. Even Steve from New Zealand. Oh my gosh. Thanks for tuning in, Steve. Oh, hey Paco. How's it going? How's it sounding? More importantly, check out that illustration. Yes. Akin says cute. So I am going to, let's start off the stream by showing you where we started yesterday. And then I'll even do a little time lapse of where we ended up at the end of the day yesterday. So something super cool in Fresco is you can export time lapses. It's also a great way to showcase the progress you've made. So I will let this time lapse play. And whoa, there's the color palettes that you chose from. And here's actually my sketching process. So like I said, we started with 4 sketches of this little character. I think we named him Merly yesterday, like a little Merlin. He's a magician that is always getting himself into trouble, and he never quite understands how much trouble he's in. He's usually in danger, and he doesn't even realize it. But you all landed on this sketch that's a little bit more innocent. It's just him hunting some glowing insects in the middle of the night. We have a nice starry sky behind him, which we'll be working on at the end of the time lapse. So there's the 4 options. You all chose the bottom right, and here we go. So the way I like to work on illustrations is in blocky shapes. So each kind of different part of the illustration is a different layer. His body's a different layer, the background's a different layer, the details are different layers, so that if you need to go back and edit anything, you can do so easily. If you have any questions about Fresco, that's the app that I'm using, Adobe Fresco, or illustration or design or anything, feel free to pop them in the chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, come on over to Behance, because that's where I can see the chat. When I look over on this side of the screen, that's what I'm looking at. Jack says, I love the Fresco time-lapse feature. Me too. Super nice, so you don't have to worry about recording your screen all the time. Kendall, oh, you're early. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Lainey from Mobile, Alabama. How you doing? Good to see you. Okay, so I'm gonna move my keyboard out of the way, bring my iPad in. I had someone ask me on Instagram yesterday what drawing tablet I was using for yesterday's stream, and it is just an iPad Pro. I believe it's the most recent one, but I use one that's from 2016, and it works just fine with Fresco. So it's a new iPad Pro with Adobe Fresco and good old-fashioned Apple Pencil 2. Gonna get out of here. And I even did a couple little tweaks right before the stream started. I did some editing on this arm right here in the middle. Let's see if I can circle it so you can see. That doesn't work super well. I did some kind of modeling on the arm so it looked more like a 3D shape and a little less paper cut-y. And I started to do that on the head as well, but I'll just show you what I mean instead of talking about it. What? Time lapse? I know, Jason, isn't that cool? Super helpful. I used to like have to start recording on OBS and then work on my entire painting knowing that it was being recorded and like taking up my CPU and being all stressed about it. So having time-lapse being built into Fresco is super nice. So let's keep modeling his body, or rendering as you could say. That just means you're kind of making it look like a 3D form, so you're adding shadow and light. You can see that really well here in the arm. Erica, hello, thanks for joining. All my buds are here. You've seen time-lapse movies of Photoshop too. How does one turn that on? Steve, I'm not sure. Is that maybe an action that you can take or a third-party extension? Are you thinking about the timeline, which is how you might edit video in Photoshop? Steven says, I use an iPad Pro 2nd generation and Fresco works just fine. That's awesome to hear. Thank you for that. Erica says, I want to live in this cute Cezanne textured world. Me too. It kind of reminds me of, oh, what's the game? It was on PS2, or no, PS3. And the people are made out of like, it's called like Little Big World? Little Big Planet. That's how it feels. Christina says, it is currently 10:45 in Ireland and I'm going to stay until the end of this, 10:35. Thank you for being here so late. Appreciate it. All right, let me actually get to work. So I have this Cezanne 2 brush selected. We've been using that for the foreground and background, and basically it's just a really nice texture brush from Kyle Webster. Thank you, Kyle. That adds a little bit of color modulation. So let's work on adding some of these highlights. I'm gonna use my color picker and grab the kind of like hottest pink from his arm. And remember yesterday for his body layer, I locked the transparency. So you can see down here, unlocked, lock, and then that way, when I'm painting and I go outside the lines, it doesn't matter because the pixels are locked. Makes sense. Chad, hello, how you doing? Malik says, I don't have an iPad, but I love to watch you draw. Thanks, Malik. You do not need an iPad. This is Sketch Party and everybody can sketch on whatever they want. They can sketch on a napkin, they can sketch on, why is the napkin the only thing I can think of? The wall, if you have a whiteboard. Wouldn't recommend that actually. I noticed that these highlights on his arm started to get a little bit muddy. Let me undo that so you can see. Notice how the pink over here is a lot more gray than the pink over here. So we want to keep this illustration looking really vibrant, and that means avoiding the gray tones. If we have something that's darker, it still needs to be saturated, at least in this illustration, because we want this to be a really like colorful and vibrant world. So with all that being said, I'm just going to add a little bit of saturation on this arm. And I think yesterday I was showing you a little bit of how I do these lasso tool selections. You can see the lines here a little bit. The X has like kind of a nice base for texture, and then I'm adding a more realistic texture on top of it. I love that push and pull of realistic, then more flattened shapes, more 2D shapes, and then maybe I'll put in some more of those flat paper-like shapes. Speaking of paper-like, I'm super excited to get my screen protector for this iPad, so it'll feel a little bit more like paper. Be a little bit nicer to sketch with. Now if I want to grab a color that's similar to this gray tone, but not as desaturated, I can grab it with my color picker. And then in this cube, or the square of color, on the right, if I move this to the right, it gets more saturated, and to the left, it gets less saturated. So let's drag it a little bit to the right. I'm gonna actually re-grab it super quick just so I can make sure I have the right one selected. And drag it to the right a bit. Cool. So it should still be a similar value. That means like a similar darkness or lightness, but now it has an increased saturation. So we can keep him nice and vibrant. I wonder what Merle is up to today. What kind of trouble he's getting himself into. Ozma says, I just joined now. Welcome, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Merle's been doing bicep curls. Merle's curls, baby. You know it. He's got to do those bicep curls to catch those tarantulas on Tarantula Island. Are we really going to talk about Animal Crossing again? I think so. A lot of you were saying that this sketch feels very Animal Crossing inspired. And you're right. It is. I spent way too long last night watching Tiger King and turning an island into a tarantula island. If you don't know what that means, it means basically gaming the system so that I can make a lot of money by catching tarantulas. Hardy, hello, how you doing? Appreciate ya. Yeah, you should definitely go check out Sam's live streams on Twitch. Does lots of really beautiful digital paintings, lots of fantasy works if you like this kind of fantasy, but you want something maybe a little bit more realistic fantasy. Go check out Sam's art. I'm adding some highly saturated shadows on the left side of his leg. And there we go. And we still haven't even gotten into the glow from the light from those bugs. So this is kind of the actual representational shadowing and rendering for him, which means like that's how he would actually look in real life. But he's in a night scene, so we also need to apply those night shadows. So those cooler blue shadows, we started to get into them a little bit up here under his chin. So we're gonna apply those all over to make the scene look real cohesive. Erica says, nobody brought it up, Kathleen. Wait, nobody else brought it up but me? Are you serious? It was me again talking about Animal Crossing? When are you gonna add a tarantula to this drawing? Alana, if you didn't notice in the time lapse, there was a tarantula at one point in the sketch. Actually, maybe I can show you. I think I erased it though. Yeah, I erased it. I was worried that I might freak some people out. I know a lot of people don't even like to see a spider. Ole, hello. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Alright, so we added some highly saturated shadows to his legs. Let's add some of those darker, more kind of purpley ones here. One thing that we can do is also change the blend mode. I might go to multiply. And so it'll stay nice and saturated, but add a little bit of a shadow over here. This is a nice kind of departure of how I usually paint, which is in those big shapes with the lasso tool. And I usually do that almost like a crutch, where it makes sure that my lines are really crisp, because naturally they're not. But right now I'm kind of just allowing them to be a little bit more cartoony, and it feels pretty good. He's taking on this texture almost like he's actually fuzzy, or maybe he's kind of like a Muppet. You know, that texture, kind of felty. He could be made of felt, magical felt. That's a thing. It's totally a thing. Alrighty, since the light is in front of his face from that glowing bug, we're making sure the shadows are on the back side of the sphere that is his head. And like I mentioned earlier, some of these values are looking a little bit gray. So I'm gonna grab this pink, make sure my blend mode is set back to normal, decrease my size again, and just apply in here just a bit so it's not so gray. And I don't want this line to be so sharp. Cool, I'm gonna pinch out and allow it to fill the screen, and now he's looking a little bit more rendered. It's looking good. We definitely need to add a little bit more depth to his legs. So let's do that now. Julia Masalska, good to see you. Chat if you don't know Julia. She's an awesome designer and host of Adobe Live. So keep an eye out for her and go follow her work. Julia, how are you holding up? How are things? Is it snowing where you are? Let's grab this. Make sure our blend mode is normal. Good. And continue to add some shadows. We don't want it to glow too much. We don't want it to be too distracting. So we'll darken this up a little bit. Slowly but surely. If I press as hard as I can, well, not as hard as I can, but you know, pretty hard, the color gets pretty dark. But if I use a light hand, I'll undo that with a 2-finger tap. If I use a pretty light hand, I can build it up slowly. I love how pressure sensitive the Apple Pencil is with Fresco. Okay, cool. Looking pretty good. It's snowing one day and sunny the next. Classic Colorado. Erica says, by the way, I love the bug's head is glowing rather than his butt and the wing arrangement. Thanks. That's a good point. I didn't really think about that. I wonder why his head glows. Maybe with his emotions, because these bugs definitely have emotions. It's that kind of world. But who knows? So his emotion must be pretty calm right now, since it's blue. Akeen says, sorry, thinking a cute tarantula is beyond my imagination, guys. Yeah, I believe you. Put a 1 in chat if you think a tarantula could be cute. I think it could be cute under the correct circumstances. Don't necessarily want to touch it, but I could admire it from afar. Let's add some shadows and some rendering to his frock, as we've lovingly been calling it for the last couple days. So the frock is his outfit. And I was saying yesterday that the color is starting to become very similar to his skin. So I'm looking at the big preview of it over here. I'm wondering if we should just change the color of it completely, maybe to something a little bit more orange, like a poppy or carnation. He's got a bright idea. There you go. Joss says that a tarantula could be cute. Malik says too. No, could not be cute. Julia, how is San Francisco? San Francisco is beautiful right now. Classic foggy, then sunny, then foggy, then sunny. So let's grab, ooh, this is a very bright orange. I'm a little scared of that. But let's use something similar to it. Bring it a little bit more towards red. And we can even change our blend mode so that it is more just hue or color. Let's see how these work. So if I just do hue, it will simply change the hue of the layer, but it will keep all of the values. So I'm just coloring this in roughly. Let's do it to the hat as well. And look at that in the preview. Looks okay, but it kind of breaks our color palette that we have been using. Let me turn that back on. What if we grab the blue and see how that goes? So it's still on hue. Oops, wrong layer. Save me, Fresco, from the wrong layers. There we go. Oops, wrong layer again. That changed his skin blue. This will change his frock to be blue. Ooh, I kind of like that, actually. Maybe we can go with that for now. Let me know if you think something different. What about dark blue with faded yellow stars, like a real Merlin's robe? Ooh. Okay, let's go for the blue and maybe add some stars to this. And we can do that with using a different blend mode or maybe just choosing a lighter blue. The bug has been drinking a lot of tequila, hence it is lit up. That bug is getting litty. That's funny, Akeen. Party it up. Okay, cool. I'm not gonna worry about the details of the stars right now. Let's actually add some depth to this net that he's holding, because it is one of the only things in this illustration that's left that doesn't have any depth or rendering on it. Another option for that is his shoes. We'll need to finish those as well, but let's focus on the net for now. So I have this net layer. I'm gonna turn it back on, and we're gonna lock the layer pixels, so lock transparency, and that way when I paint with multiply, make it pretty small, we can darken just the edge without worrying about going outside the edge. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Nice. I wonder what this net is made of. Is it like spectral? Does it not actually exist? Is it glowing? Because if that's the case, we would treat the lighting a little bit differently. I think it's made of something, like wood, perhaps. Maybe 7 soft wood that you need to craft in your DIY station. Who's to say? And since these values are super same on top of the clothing and the net with that layer, I might keep it a little bit lighter on his clothes because we don't want it to fade in completely. All right, nice. Let's add a little bit more depth around the edges. Make the brush a bit bigger so it's a little bit softer. And cool. Make it a little bit smaller to get this inside edge. Nice. It's getting there. Looks like pine, definitely a softwood. Oh, there's a pixel brush with a star pattern in Fresco, Alana, or just a separate one? We could make one with capture. That'd be cool. We could sketch some stars, but then I guess we could just sketch some stars in Fresco. I'm always looking for a reason to use capture, but this might not be one of them. All right, sweet. Sorry for all the zooming in and out. It's just how I have to look at things. Under the comic section, let's check it out, Alana. So we got a pixel brush. Let's choose comics. And do I see a star when I see the crackle, the Kirby crackle, as they say? This might actually be a good option for some sort of texture. Like, what if we change this to color burn, make the size a lot smaller, make the color a lot brighter. That might be too bright. Let's turn down the flow. Here we go. Yeah, you're right. It might not fit the actual feel of this illustration, but it's cool. Almost looks like bubbles for an underwater illustration. Your eyes are being opened. To what, Eric? All kinds of things? What if there were little glowing footprints in the grass where the wizard stepped? Gus, you're a genius. That's perfect because the ground plane, I think, was missing some little details. And also that would allow us to do the little footprints and then put some grass in front of the footprints to add even more depth. More magic. What if we make everything glow? Add a little bit more glow to it. I'm the Bob Ross of glow, baby. All right, so if we do want to add a little bit of footprintage, let's make its own layer for it. I'm going to drag it down below, or I guess on top of the grass layer. We are going to go back to our Cezanne. Let's do number 1. Cool. Increase the size. Don't need it to be too small. Okay, so his strides look to be about like 2 inches wide, at least at the scale that this is. So there would be one right here that he's leaving. And there would be another one like right here-ish. And he's touching down right there. And let's add a little bit more. Munir says, Kathleen, are you left-handed? I am, Munir. I'm holding this with my left hand. I'm kind of weird though. I'm kind of ambidextrous in a way where I eat and I draw with my left hand, but I do everything else right-handed. Oh, and yeah, I brush my teeth left-handed too. Like the fine motor skills, it's left-handed, and then throwing a ball. My right arm is way stronger. This is my weak artist arm. How about you guys? You left-handed, right-handed? Let me know. All right, let's make the brush a little bit smaller so we can really detail out the actual footprint. And that's probably where the glow is the strongest, so that's where we would have it be closer to white. Like a little portal. Cute. What if they are portals to another world? That's the cool thing about art. You can just make your own worlds. Be a world builder. And then from there, we might even be able to change back to Cezanne 2 because that one has a little bit less modulation in it. Increase the size, but decrease the flow a lot. Oh, that was set to multiply? No wonder. No wonder. I don't want that to be white. I want it to be more glowy. Yes, perfect. More spectral. And then that means the bottom of his shoe would be lighting up as well. We can add that on the other layer. Gus, this is such a good idea. I'm into it in a big way. Okay. I'm just kind of building up value. This is the same way that I added the depth and the glow for the actual fireflies, which is good. You want to use similar techniques. Let me change to eraser really quick. You want to use similar techniques when you're trying to achieve similar effects. So if I'm going to make one thing glow and something else is glowing in the image, it should look like it's glowing the same way, or else it's not going to look like it exists in the same world. Undo, please. Double tap. There we go. Just trying to see if that looks better, if it's like a hard cut. Not so much. Not so much. All right, and don't forget that we do need to add some grass in front, and then it'll have some nice kind of rim lighting on the edge of the blades. We're all craving more glow. My sister's doing all things left-handed except for eating. Interesting. The further step away, the less glowy it would be because it's less fresh. Oh, Joss, that's a great point. One way that we can do that is if I duplicate the layer and then I erase it everywhere else. Erase. Then on the original layer, I erase the one that we want to affect. Erase. And then we can change this blend mode or decrease the opacity. Let's change the opacity first. I don't like that so much. I don't want it to be more see-through. I just want it to be less fresh. Let's just play with all of these, see how they look. And the last thing we could do is play with the hue of it. All right, let's play with, whoops. Sorry for all the tapping. Let's lock this. Perfect. And we are simply going to choose a less saturated blue. Go back to our brush. Make sure that this is set to hue. And it's still pretty bright because it's not going to change the whiteness of it. So let's just bring down the opacity just a tinge. Cool. Looks good. I like it. Gus is excited. Yes, looks so cool. Akin says these technologies are great to make it possible for people with a great free hand drawing skills to digitize their work right away, right? I agree. I mean, as a digital painter, once I knew that I wanted to try digital painting, my first thought was like, okay, I need to get a tablet. So you get a tablet. It's another piece of hardware. A really nice tablets. I like the Wacom tablets. Definitely, there are definitely some other companies that make something that's a little bit more achievable price point wise. You might not have the same quality as something that's more expensive, but there might be a nice kind of middle ground you can find. I know Monoprice does good ones. Huion has other tablets. I had a Yenova. Do not recommend a Yenova. Do not recommend. Michelle says it's time for bed. We'll definitely watch this replay. Michelle, thank you. Thanks for being here. Chef's kiss for you. Appreciate it. Boyana, hi. Really nice to see. You're about to say it doesn't affect the white. Yeah, Joss. I could just make it blue. I could just make it blue. Let's do that. Let's increase the opacity again. We're gonna just color pick from here. We are going to make sure our blending mode is normal again. Let's just paint over it a little bit. Make it less glowy. And maybe even also erase some of the glow. Remember yesterday I was using the touch shortcut. to erase with my brush texture. So let's do that. How many of y'all who are watching found Adobe Live recently? I'm very interested to know. Adobe Live has existed for a long time, but since everyone is at home right now, we've definitely kicked up the amount of streams we've been doing, which is why we're doing Sketch Party to kind of end out the day, adding a couple more streams and hours throughout the day. But I'm interested to know who has just joined. Munir, hello. You have been around all day, I think. How's it going? All right, so we were talking about adding grass. What is this layer? That is the sketch layer. Cool, cool, cool. We were talking about adding grass, so let's drag the grass that we already have above here. That looks pretty cool. It's a good way to start. Let me add a couple bit more. I believe I used the Cezanne 1, probably about that size, and I used this color. Remember, a super cool thing about these Cezanne brushes is that when you paint with them, whoops, we don't want white. When you paint with them, it modulates the color for you. We want that one, please. Thank you. So if I zoom in on this, there's some darker kind of greens. There's some lighter stuff in there. Super nice. We're going to increase the flow. There we go. So let's add a couple blades in front of these lights. And then we will add some lighting behind them to add more depth. Just kind of sprinkling them in. Want it to look realistic. And down here there isn't much grass in the first place, so I need to add a little bit more breathing room. Increase the size of the brush to make it look like it's the background. And I'm tilting my brush just a little bit to have it cover more ground for me. Literally, more ground. Munir says, I've been watching the stream since the beginning when Rufus was hosting English streams on the Adobe Live website. Oh, okay, the European streams. That is a long time ago. I first started live streaming for Adobe in 2015. It's almost 5 years ago. 5 years ago in June? Jeez Louise. Eric says, now I think I need to step up my tablet game and write that book. Yes, Eric, you don't need a tablet, but if you want to digitally paint, it might be good. Although I always think that if you have a big idea, get it done however you want to, with the tools that you have. I'm interested to hear about that children's book. What is it going to be about? I took a children's book illustration class in college, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. And maybe it still is. It's never too late to try something a little bit different. Okay, we've got a couple stalks going on here. I don't want them to look too prescriptive, like I said, so it's a difficult line, a fine line that you have to find. How would grass actually grow? And how do I want to kind of make the visual language for it? Because again, this is our world. We get to do whatever we want. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to fill in some of these areas where I've let off the transparency a little bit. We want them to be totally opaque for the most part so that we can have that light glowing around the edges. Just doing a time check. I've just been drawing and not worrying about it. I'm going to be out of here at 3:30, so about 20-25 minutes. But Adobe Live will be back tomorrow morning bright and early with more. Like I said, there's 3 daily creative challenges going on right now, which is incredible. Lots of opportunities for you all to learn. We've got Photoshop, Illustrator, and XD. Can't forget XD. Becky says it would be great if it was possible to use Fresco with a normal Wacom tablet as well, not just the one that draws directly on the screen. Oh, you'd want to be able to plug in your Wacom tablet. Yeah, that would be cool. I guess the option there would be to just use normal Photoshop. All of the tools in here are in Photoshop, except maybe the live brushes. The live brushes live within Fresco. Wayne Smith, what is up, my dude? A fellow artist, a painter extraordinaire. What would your kid's book be about, Kathleen? I don't know, probably this guy. Probably Merle, getting into all kinds of trouble, although it might be more of like a teens kid's book, because it would be spooky. It would be spooky. Is that okay? How's it going, Wayne? You painting today? Painting some portraits? If you go check out Wayne on Instagram, you can see he's doing some really, really, really beautiful ink paintings with watercolor. Super lovely. Go check it out. Okay, what was I doing? Oh yes. Time to add some of that really dynamic light on these blades of grass. So let's use the brightest blue that we have, the most saturated. Let's just grab it from our palette if we're going to be official about it. Whoa, where's that coming from? There we go. And let's lock the transparency of our, actually let's not, we're going to freehand it. I was going to say we could lock the transparency and apply the light very strictly to the strands, the blades of grass that we just drew. But since it's kind of hard to see what's behind it, let's just freehand it. This is all freehand. Kids like spooky. And I wonder why that is, to be honest. I liked spooky though as a kid, so I guess I get it. All right, let's change our blending mode, perhaps to color burn. Let's see how that looks. Maybe color dodge, linear burn. We want it to still be highly saturated, not see-through. Maybe we'll just do normal. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. Don't need to get super fancy. All right, make the brush uber small. And make those blades glow, baby. We want it to be kind of a different hue than the actual glowing footprint so that you can tell. So if I did the same kind of white blue as the footprint, you wouldn't even be able to tell that these were glowing. Add these in, surely add them in. You're gonna play Resident Evil 3? Malik, that sounds scary. Speaking of spooky. Thank you, Sam, for posting Smith and Fritzy. And yeah, definitely find my touch point on Instagram. That's where I usually hang out the most, where I am most active when I'm not on Adobe Live, but also, actually, I wanted to mention this. I'm helping out on the Illustrator and the Photoshop Discord servers this week and next as a mentor. So if you post your work to get feedback, I might be one of the people giving you feedback, which is super fun. I'll probably be there like around 5:30 p.m. Pacific time most days after the real work day has ended, and I can start my Discord day, my disco day. That looks pretty cool. I love this footprint with the super glow. It's super nice. Super nice, super glow. Add a couple of these. This is a big blade. Where'd that come from? Oh, me. There we go. For these ones, you might have a glow on both sides. Get out of here, touch shortcut. You can just touch it and move it. These might have a little rim light on both sides because they are kind of face on. And these on the side will only have them on one side because the footprint is to their right or left. They're right or left. Nice. I kind of feel like I need to now add some highlights on the blades in the back. Hope says, in regards to portfolio critiques, what if I have a range of stuff, not just Photoshop or XD? That's great. You should definitely still post your portfolio. I would recommend, though, you post it in the Discord that most closely relates to the work that you want feedback on. So if you post it in Photoshop, you're probably going to get feedback on your projects that are more designy or photo-y. And then I guess I should say the Illustrator one would be more designy or vector-based. I think that might be the distinction, raster or vector. Allison says it would be very cool to have a Fresco daily challenge with some bite-sized projects. Allison, I agree. Can we make it happen? Together, Allison? Let's make it happen. That would be very fun. Almost like a 10-day challenge, illustration challenge. Alrighty, I'm going to decrease the flow just a little bit so that we can add just a little bit of texture back here. I don't want it to be too literal, like here is a blade and here is a blade, because I don't want this background and this floor to become the focus. So I'm just going to add a little bit of texture back here. And right here. Since I'm trying to stay cohesive with my brushes, I'm trying to stick with the same brushes in the entire illustration, and that means that I have to use the brush in the best way possible. So for example, for this technique, I might want to use something that's a little bit more like a watercolor wash, but since this brush has some texture built into it, I'm just making it work by pressing super lightly and allowing it to build up itself. Cool, it looks like chalk on paper. Do a little bit there. And there. Alrighty, our footsteps, which were Gus's idea, are complete, at least complete for now. So let's move back to maybe adding some of the highlights on our friend. We've worked with the shadows, so let's add some of that blue light that's reflecting from these fireflies. I'm trying to decide where I want to start. I mean, the face is always the most fun, but maybe I'll start with the arm right here. So I'm gonna make a new layer. Actually, let's just paint on his actual figure. No, I'm kind of scared to do that. Let's make a new layer just in case I mess it up. That's what Fresco's for. If you're scared you're gonna mess up, just make a new layer. There's no rule against it. So I'm gonna just use the lasso tool and make a rough selection around his arm where I think the highlight would be. That works for now. And then I'm going to make sure I have Saison 2 selected, that has less texture in it. Turn the flow way down, turn the brush size way up. And let's see how this looks just kind of straight out of the tube, as they say. So that looks a little bit gray, like I mentioned before, but what happens when we play with the blend modes of this layer? Maybe a screen or a lighten? Ooh. Lighter color doesn't look bad. Overlay doesn't look bad. Interesting. I want it to stay more blue, so maybe I need to use a darker blue for this. Let's start with color dodge. Let me make another selection. Maybe here this time. And let's use the more vibrant blue, maybe a little bit darker as well. Let's see how that looks. Oh yeah, here we go. That's what I wanted. Turn the flow down. We're gonna build it up most right on the front of his arm. Deselect, looks cool. And then I did this the first time we did the shadows. I'll do these kind of sharp shapes and then go back in with a softer brush and soften up the edges. Eric says, I'm really loving that whimsical aspect of this world. How could I not be thinking about a children's book? I'm glad you're thinking that way, Eric. Wayne says, glowing footsteps were a brilliant idea. Thank Gus for that. Thank Gus for Gus. All right, let's add some of this lightness to his face. This is gonna be fun. First, I'm gonna fill it in super lightly. Like that. Yay! I dig how that looks. Maybe do one more, and then we'll do a super intense one. Got about 10 minutes left here, and then I'll let you guys go for the evening, and I'm super interested to know, do you guys have evening plans? Gonna watch anything on Netflix? We're hoping to finish up Tiger King tonight. I just don't even know what to think. I don't know what to think about that show. That might be too bright. Yeah, it kind of looks like he has a big old mouth. Let's undo that. Do it a little bit more lightly. I'm seriously building this up so slowly. Cool. And now we can do some larger ones. Deselect. Like this. Maybe do something even darker. Cool, I like how this is looking. And then we can even go back in here and play with our layer styles and see how they're all looking. Oh, that looks pretty cool. It kind of fades out a bit. That's the opposite of what we want. Overlay got a little bit dark, but it's kind of cool. It adds a very painted texture, like this was made with acrylics. And these are all the darker ones. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, we definitely want to stay up here in like the color dodge and linear dodge family. Cool, color dodge it is for now. Signed digital copies for your audience, Kathleen. You can just take a screenshot. I don't mind. Should we start Tiger King? Chad, are you ready for it? I don't even know. It's a masterfully done documentary. That is what I will say. The timelines are seamless, at least in my opinion. I know I have some friends on my team who are watching it, so if they're still here and they want to give their feedback, I'm just gonna say Erica's the one. Erica's the one who told me to watch it. And it was a good call. Erica, we appreciate it. All right, let's break up the harshness of the edge on the arm a little bit. Woohoo! Look at that. So whimsical. The magic of digital art, everybody. Cool, that toned it down just a little bit. Let's add some to the front of his legs. I'm working as if I'm working on my original layers, so I'm gonna do all of his body first, and then his clothes, and then we'll do the rest. Usually when you have highlights, they're warmer than the shadows, but in this one, the shadows are pretty warm. They're more pink, and then our highlights are turning more like lavender blue. In this world, anything can happen. There we go. Whoops. That was the wrong brush. We haven't even gotten into the live brushes and the vector brushes. Maybe in a future sketch party we can chat about those a little bit. I love the watercolor brushes. They're one of the reasons I love Fresco so much. Nice, I like that. Ashi, hello! Thanks for being here. Thanks for stopping in. Allison says I would categorize Tiger King with making a murderer, so if you're into that, you might enjoy it. Molly says most of it is pretty hard to watch. It's definitely not a happy watch. Yeah, viewer discretion for sure, if there's any kids watching. Sierra says I'm gonna make macaroons with my sister-in-law tonight. My new sister-in-law, that's exciting. Sierra, that sounds like such a nice evening. Eric says, could you remove the layers palette so I can screenshot this, please? I mean, I will. I'll also probably put this on Instagram. If you would like it as a phone background, just say the word. I'll also turn off this palette. Shout out to Gus for turning up the music. Thank you, Gus. Hi. You came just in time, Ashi, for it to be 5 minutes before the stream's over. Not family friendly, no. Unless your kids are over 13 or even older. Tiger King costume themed stream next? I don't know. I cannot commit to the blonde mullet. Maybe I'll do just face paint. There's some of that in that show for sure. Okay, so we're working on the highlights on his leg. Let's keep doing so on his back leg. The highlight won't be as stark because there's no real light actually shining on it. It's just kind of catching the glow from the top. Let's just apply some right up there. Nice. I think I want to add some to his ear. That's kind of been neglected this whole time. Sorry, ear. There we go. And I want to soften up the edges of this face highlight even just a bit more. And I'm doing that by just making new slices, new selections, and adding a little bit of depth step by step. And then maybe we'll add something a little bit more stunning to the edge of his face. Like right there. We'll grab the bright blue again and really just go for the edge. Oh, that is too much though. Increase the size. Can always undo. It's a beautiful thing. Cool. I think one thing that's missing right now is any light in his eyes. His eyes are so big and so light colored already. His corneas, that we have a lot of room to play with that glow here. So let's do that. Let's select our eye layer. I'm going to lock the transparency. Let me make a little bit of a selection. And this might be the last thing we do, at least for this stream. But I'm definitely going to post this on Instagram when it's done. And then hopefully we'll do more of these sketch parties next week. It's not scheduled yet, but if you guys like it, we might be able to do it. Keep an eye out for sure. Make it a little bit more white. And we might even do this color. Shoot, I always do that. Grab that, perfect. More saturated. Decrease the size quite a bit, increase the flow. And, whoa, too big. Alrighty, so we have this little highlighted area right here. We're gonna call it that for the evening. Keep an eye on Instagram. I'm Kathleen Illustrated on there if you wanna check it out. And I've already done the time lapse at the beginning. So if you want to check out the final piece, check it out on Instagram. Maybe I'll be back next week, but either way, come back to Adobe Live tomorrow, bright and early. We will have more for you. Thanks everybody for being here and have an awesome evening. Bye everybody. Woo!